Hi, I'm Brett Winterble, talk show host on WBT in Charlotte, North Carolina, and you are watching The Rebound with Coach Matt Doherty.
Welcome to The Rebound with Coach Matt Doherty.
Welcome to The Rebound. I am Matt Doherty, and I'll be your host. On this show, we explore remarkable rebound stories of resilience and recovery. We highlight the leadership qualities that emerge in the face of life's toughest challenges, revealing the strength and determination within individuals that inspire us all. Today, that story revolves around President-elect Donald Trump. And with me today is someone that has had a front row seat to Trump's rise and fall and rise again. With me today is Brett Winterble. He is the host of the Brett Winterble Show on WBT in Charlotte. His show is the #1 talk show in the Southeast. Brett produced the Rush Limbaugh Show for almost 10 years, and he's the smartest guy I know when it comes to politics. I'm on as a regular guest on his Wednesday show, and I learn a lot from him and his audience. And oh, by the way, we have a good time. Brett, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Coach. It's great to be with you.
Always, always. Take us back to the beginning. Where were you when Donald Trump ran for president the first time?
I was in California, San Diego, in California, and I thought it was a really interesting story. I didn't know how far this thing was going to go, but he caught fire very quickly. And if we go back to the original debate, the very first debate that was moderated by Megyn Kelly back in 2015, 2016, he blew up. He absolutely blew up. And half of the people didn't, I think, understand what he was doing. Here's this tycoon who's got the world by both hands, and he's now decided he wants to run for the president of the United States because he wants to try to make the country better. We had been floundering under the Obama administration. Certainly living out in California was a phenomenal experience to, go to the beach and do things like that. But it was, $4 a gallon for gasoline. And we were under Jerry Brown, and then Gavin Newsom came in. So when I first saw him come down that escalator and saw him on that debate stage taking out sequentially each and every contender, it was remarkable. And I knew I wanted to follow what this line was going to be, especially in talk radio. It was gold falling from the sky.
Did you think in his first term that he did a good job?
Yes, I do think he did a good job. I think that one of the issues that we had obviously was COVID. And I think he was also naive about what it was going to take to turn the country around. I think he hired a bunch of people who were not looking out for the country's best interests or his best interests. Rex Tillerson comes to mind. James Comey comes to mind. You look at what happened in that first term, and it's a split decision in many ways, right? He's trying to have he's trying to fight the fight for the American people, for the worker. And at the same time, he's got all of Washington, D.C., including Republicans, who are looking to kind of just wait him out over time. And I think, honestly, it was a very difficult game. And I think that there were two pivotal moments for him. The first one was going after Soleimani and the Iranian regime, because the Obama-Biden administration had decided they were going to give money to the Iranians, pallets of cash. And I think that was a big moment when he decided he was going to hit them back. He didn't go very much for warfare, but he had two operations that were very significant. One was in Syria, taking out a group of Russian, the Russian fighters there. And then, of course, obviously Soleimani. And at that point, one thing became clear, especially to someone like Xi Jinping: Donald Trump's not to be toyed with.
When he went to run for re-election in 2022, Do you think there was unethical behavior going on?
Unethical by who?
The media, controlling the media, censorship, the ballots in Georgia, Pennsylvania, illegal voting.
Look, I think, I mean, you have mail-in voting for the first time in mass in the United States. You have Zuckerbucks going around everywhere. It's a huge catastrophe with COVID happening. People are not going to work. People are staying home day drinking. They're doing drugs. They're ignoring their kids, all this kind of stuff. It was a chaotic hurricane hellscape that was out there. So do I think that there was voter fraud? Sure. I mean, in any given election, there's going to be voter fraud. And now by looking at the numbers that we have today, Coach, where we're down 10 million from where Joe Biden was in 2020, and nobody can explain where the 10 million votes went. I mean, I'm not saying that it was stolen. I'm just saying that it was.
What are you saying, Brett? What are you saying?
I'm saying, here's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you got a lot of public school math that was used that doesn't add up, man. Okay, you got a lot of that stuff, and so as a consequence, people lost confidence in the country, and all we have to go back to is the idea that we had with the Hunter laptop, and everybody told us it was a lie. 51 intelligence agency bosses said it was a lie. And it wasn't a lie. The courts.
So the Hunter laptop was real.
It was really real. It was the realest thing of real I've seen in a long time. And listen,
to give you credit, we were talking about that on your show, the Brett Winterble Show on WBT, in November of 2020.
August.
Right?
August.
And they kept burying it. Bob Alinsky, they just kept burying it. We were like, how's this not real? Like, what are they hiding? So let's talk about that. Talk more about censorship, legacy media, the power of the media, and how maybe the tide has changed here in 2024.
The greatest, biggest, best answer to the media was set in place with the Rush Limbaugh show, because he sat on all of those stations and was able to rebut all of the nonsense. Even after he got sick, he still pushed that fight. He had Donald Trump on his show in some of the last months of his program, right? And so you had a counterbalance coming in that way. Talk radio is the counterbalance to the legacy media that we see. And it's what makes people who are driving around in their cars or listening, sorry about that, or listening on the streams, makes them feel that they're not alone. And that's the secret sauce of reaching the American people.
About Donald Trump, do you think his background in entertainment helped him as a politician?
1,000%.
How so?
1,000%. Timing, the ability to read a room, the ability to improv. It's not lost on me that Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump both understood the medium. In fact, Zelensky understands the medium because he was an actor on TV in Ukraine back in the day. You get timing, you get all that stuff, and it's a very important skill set to have, because otherwise you look like Tim Walz or Kamala Harris. You're not able to pivot and improv.
Yeah. I appreciate that insight, Brett. Let's go to break. And when we come back, Brett is going to discuss the most significant rebound of Donald Trump's life and his plan for second term as president. OMJ Clothing is an elite men's clothing store that provides a vast array of spectacular brands of men's lifestyle apparel for every day. Elevate your business upscale casual at OMJ. Success comes from standing out. The Rebound is sponsored by Sector Spider ETFs, a unique family of exchange-traded funds that divide the S&P 500 into 11 sector index funds. You can buy just the sectors you like or customize the S&P 500 by weighting the 11 sectors to meet your financial objective. Please visit them on the web at sectorspiders.com. That's sector, SPDRS.com.
Alps Portfolio Solutions Distributor, a registered broker-dealer, is the distributor for the Select Sector Spider Trust.
Brett, tell us how Donald Trump is going to rebound in his second term as president of the United States.
I think the seminal moment of the campaign was what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. The attempted assassination of President Trump, I think, was a more than a pivot point. It was a rebirth in many ways. What we saw take place, and remember, this is July 13th of 2024 when this all happens. You still have the drama surrounding Joe Biden and the horrible debate that took place back in June. And this is the thing that I think causes the reset for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz becoming those people. Okay. So Donald Trump is nearly killed in plain view of millions and millions of people. And I believe if you go from that moment in time and then you pivot over to the convention where he sat basically silently for 3 nights before he gave a speech, it was a big reset. It was a rebound at that moment. And I think he understood, whether or not he articulated it or not, he understood that he was given another chance. And he was going to make this his big moment, not in a cynical way, but he's that guy that has the heart attack and says, I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to quit eating bad foods, all that kind of stuff. And that's what he did. And so he immediately became a very disciplined candidate. He was messaging properly. He was working it. He was doing all that sort of stuff. And really, for all intents and purposes, going from that point in time to where we are on election night, he ran a very, very disciplined campaign. Were there slips? Were there things that you could say or not? Heck yeah. If you're giving speeches that are 3 hours on end and you're doing it 2 and 3 times over the weekend, you're going to say a couple of things that maybe don't land right. But my gosh, he always kept that core mission in front of him. He knew what he was trying to do, but more importantly, he knew what they were trying to do to him, and he was fighting for his life.
You talked about that seminal moment in Butler, but a lot of people felt that he stumbled against Kamala Harris in that debate. What did you see, and how did he regain some momentum in the following weeks of that Kamala Harris debate?
Sure. And remember, he's debating 3 different people. He's debating the moderators, and he's debating Kamala Harris. And so, they were breaking up his ability to make points because he was having to deal with the correction, which would knock him off of his game a little bit. And yet still, Kamala Harris was no great shakes in that debate. She was just protected by the moderators. And so does Kamala Harris win that debate? I would say, yes, she won the debate, but she didn't win the election and she didn't win the fight. And that's the thing that I think is important. Donald Trump is always most effective when he's got adversity on him. It's when he's got things smooth and sailing and everything is great that he gets a little distracted. He works best from adversity. He reminds me of a quarterback that can't stay in the pocket. And you know what happens? A lot of times they're going to get smacked. But the reality is you can't take your eyes off this guy when he's doing this, because 9 times out of 10, he's able to overcome the reckless sort of things that are said or pivoted towards. And he has an ability to course correct with the media, and he uses the media in a way like nobody else has ever used it. and it's a remarkable thing to see.
Why will he be an even better president this time around?
He's got one term. He's the guy in Vegas, and he's got the chips on the table, and he's going all in. He knows he's got one last chance to try to do the sort of reforms that he's got to do, and he is not being a person that is going to be overly cautious. He's going for the win. You see some of these people that have been, named as secretaries. Holy cow, big, bold swings. And he is casting an administration that looks like something out of a television series. And at the end of the day, every one of these people is smart, and they're tenacious, and they're also cunning. And this is what you need when you go into the den of thieves in Washington, D.C.
Give us some names of the cabinet that he is picking, and why do you like these people?
All right, so let's start with a conventional person, Marco Rubio, a guy who fought him hard in 2016, and yet they built a bond as a result. Marco Rubio is a fairly young person, right? And he is going to be able to go out there and take on the despots around the world. You're talking about Venezuela, you're talking about Cuba, you're talking about the people that are out there in this world who mean us harm, including, of course, cartels, etc. You have a tremendous DNI now in Tulsi Gabbard, a now Republican, used to be a liberal Democrat, who is going to be in charge of intelligence. He just named Matt Gaetz into the position for Attorney General, which is an off the charts pick. If it works, it's going to be amazing. If it falls apart, there's not a lot of downside in that regard, because you could always find another person to be the AG. You're looking at people who are very skilled at messaging. All of these people, none of these guys are Jeff Sessions. None of these guys are the people that are kind of sitting back and saying, well, I don't really know what I think. They know what they think, and they know what they're going to do. He has started off with border security, international security, and what America needs to do to remain a strong place in the world. He hasn't even gotten to his economics yet. He hasn't even gotten a Treasury Secretary. None of that stuff. This guy is working for the long term.
He hasn't even been announced. I mean, he's not even taken a place in the White House yet. He's getting this all done before he moves in, so to speak.
Right.
What does that say about him?
Well, what it says about him is he's a builder, right? I mean, if you buy a piece of property, if you're a builder and you buy a piece of property, you know those payments are coming, whether it's dirt or a building. And he's got to get that thing going, right? He's got to build that thing. He's got to clear the brush. He's got to lay the foundations. He's got to get the kickbacks to the contractors. Okay, I'm sorry. That's not really nice to say. But you know what I'm saying? This is a guy who's going to be working. And I think he understands that the clock is not his friend, but he's going to utilize that to try to be the most effective that he could possibly be. Again, none of this is fanboy kind of analysis from me. This is just from what I've seen around the world. And when you see somebody like this, you can take advantage of that in the best possible way for the country.
What are your listeners saying? You have this great show, WBT, 3 to 7, Monday through Friday, the Brett Winterble Show on WBT. You have great listeners, strong signal, one of the number one show in the Southeast. What are your listeners saying about Donald Trump and the next 4 years?
Let me say something first before I answer that. I also have a tremendous friend and asset in Coach Doherty, who comes on my show every week and gets such great knowledge to our audience. And I can't thank you enough for that, Coach, because I always get smarter when you're on the show with me. So that's just beyond
thank you.
Any kind of a question.
Our motto is to educate and entertain. We like to have a good time,
correct.
And hopefully we all learn something. We all get better.
That's exactly right. And
so what are your listeners saying?
Yeah. My listeners are saying, look, we want the action to happen, but we also have to understand that we're 69, 68, 65 days away from the inauguration, right? But what they're doing is they're laying all that foundation, and they have built up a great amount of equity in the best possible way with these listeners who are curious. You see what people have suffered under over the last almost 4 years. And you understand that if we have to wait a couple of more months, well, then so be it. But the reality is the people trust him right now. And you see Gen X came out big for him. You saw a lot of women come out for him. You saw Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, straight, gay, whatever. People want to see America strong because everybody does better. One of the things I noticed today, though, that is very interesting. One of the things I noticed that was very interesting was the fact that he didn't meddle in the Senate leadership fight. He didn't go in and say it better be Cornyn or it better be Thune or it better be, somebody else. He let that play because he understands he's going to pick his battles, and in other cases, he's going to have to let it go. And Thune came out. He's now the new majority leader, replacing Mitch McConnell. And in the House side of things, he trusts Mike Johnson. And so I think he's letting his guys do their thing, and he's focusing on the bigger picture.
That's leadership. That's experience. All right, Brett, it's November 2028. I can't believe we're talking about that, but it'll be here before we know it. The election is over, and we're looking back. What is Donald Trump's legacy?
I think the biggest legacy he's going to bring is going to be liberty and freedom to Iran. I think he's bound and determined to finally solve that problem that has bedeviled us since 1979. And I think he's going to get democracy into Iran. And I think it's going to go by the way of the Saudis on MBS, because that area could become a world market.
Wow. I didn't see that one coming. All right. That was good. All right. We have a minute to go. What question should I have asked that I didn't?
What question should you have asked that you didn't? How do you stay optimistic?
I love it. Brett Winterble, how do you stay optimistic?
I have a daughter and a son. And as I know, you have a daughter and a son. I live for my kids. My wife and I live for our kids. I know you and your family does as well. You have to be an optimist if you have children, because you have to believe that the next generation is going to get it right. And even if they fall short, you're confident that at some point we'll all be able to be together and understand that we fought the best possible fight we could, and that America is fundamentally the better place for it. And that's, I think, fundamentally what it comes down to is we have to be optimistic. Otherwise, there's no hope for the future.
I what a great answer. And when I look at your son, for example, Luke at the Citadel, and my kids, the future is bright, because that is our future. Your kids, my kids. And we have someone in Donald Trump that is going to right the ship and help launch these kids into the next generation of leaders. Brett, thank you for joining us today and sharing on the Rebound story that is Donald Trump and America. I appreciate you making time for us.
The pleasure's all mine, Coach. I appreciate all that you do.
Leadership is a learned behavior. We all lead in some way, shape, or form. We all deal with adversity. And when you do, I challenge you to rebound. I challenge you to learn and grow. If you would like to contact me, you can reach me at dohertycoaching.com. That's DOHERTY.com. Thanks for tuning in.